Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Pittsburgh Sports Memories. In this episode, we're all going to talk about everybody's favorite, the stinking media. At least it wasn't, I guess it wasn't Bill Cowler's favorite too much, but so there have been many radio, print, and TV personalities and journalists. Really, their job is to cover the game and help us get a closer look on that. But some have shocked us, while others have entertained us, and some might have even had like a voice or personality that could probably only work in Pittsburgh. Um, as usual, I'll be joined with my co-host Tim Hannon.
Hi, everybody.
So I guess we'll jump right in here, and we're going to start off with somebody that everybody knew. I didn't know how to organize these, so I just kind of threw them all together. I mean, I guess you could go old school, new school. I'll call this guy kind of new, of the newer school here. That would be one Mark Madden. He is definitely the most controversial figure on this list. Um, his quick bio. He grew up in Shaler. He graduated from Duquesne University, so you got that going for you, Tim. He worked for the Post Gazette. He covered high school sports when he started. He also worked with the WCW wrestling as an announcer. Then he was on a Channel 4 Sports Sunday Roundtable show. He also hosted a talk show on ESPN Radio 1250. That's probably where everybody kind of became familiar with him. He still writes a column, I think, for the Beaver. No, I don't know if he writes a column for the Beaver County Times. He definitely writes a column for the Trib Review, and he currently hosts now a talk show on 105.9 The X. What he's known for, why he's a legend. He he got kicked off that roundtable show on Channel 4 by Dan Rooney, supposedly. That's always been the rumor. I think he said something like negative about Hines Ward or something. He also got kicked off of ESPN Radio for making a joke about Ted Kennedy. And this is the quote. I remember hearing this. I don't remember it being this bad, but I guess, I don't know. I'm very disappointed to hear that Senator Ted Kennedy of Massachusetts is near death because of a brain tumor. I always hoped Senator Kennedy would live long enough to be assassinated. Uh, so they kicked him off for that. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't like Ted Kennedy, so I always thought that was kind of political, but I guess maybe not, reading that quote.
Honestly, that was one of those things that, you know, so it was definitely a little crass. Was that the worst thing he ever said? Not by a mile. And were there people that were like legitimately offended by that? Like, I won't listen to your station anymore. I won't buy any products of people who advertise. I mean, it really wasn't anybody that was. It was a small group of people that were actually like hurt and offended by that. I wrote the station manager at 1250 an email at the time that I still have, and I was all angry about him getting fired, and I was like, I'm not going to listen anymore. And he wrote back and he said, and I pulled it up here. He said, I can't ask you to understand why we dismiss Mark, but this has been coming for a long time. And he wrote some other stuff, but it was just interesting that that was his reply.
Wow.
That
So this was like the straw that broke the camel's back.
this was
Wow.
this was Mike Thompson, who was the general manager at 1250 ESPN Radio. He actually wrote me back and said it was interesting that he would say that. You would think A, you wouldn't even get a response, and B, it would be just a template like, thank you for listening, we believe blah blah blah. I mean, he basically said, this has actually been a long time coming. So that was interesting to hear. It was very candid, and it just made you think, okay, they were just kind of looking for a reason at that point, and this was the reason.
Huh. I didn't know that, Tim. That's great. Wait, well, wow. You actually wrote a letter to the editor. Nice. He also has like this thing, Mark Madden, where he picks a Steeler and he just starts picking on them. I remember it started with like Jerome Bettis, and then it kind of moved to like Hines Ward. Like I said, that's what got it kicked off the that Channel 4 show. And then it was Ryan Clark, if I remember correctly, because that was back when they were cracking down on the headshots and stuff. And now it's Juju because he dances on TikTok and stuff. Um, he once bet, on a more humorous note, he once bet Mario Lemieux that he couldn't score from a face-off. So in 2002 against the Buffalo Sabres, Lemieux actually scored a goal off the face-off. And Mark Madden, true to his word, donated $6,600 to the Mario Lemieux Foundation, which of course benefits people with cancer and such. So that was a pretty cool little story. And Madden, when he did WCW, I don't remember. Do you remember Tank Abbott at all? He was like a very he run a UFC, like one of the first UFCs. He was an actual UFC fighter in the very early days of that. And then he went into like professional wrestling and he beat up Mark Madden in like some sort of bit. I guess they were trying to make Tank Abbott a heel or something. Um, Madden used to call Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown the No Rings Mafia, which I always thought was kind of funny. But I mean that's just kind of what he does. He's like, he's just really the wrestling heel persona is what he's brought to like radio. So just the stuff he says just to get on people's skin and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it right there at the end, Steve. That's exactly his shtick is he's a wrestling heel. Remember we talked in that last episode about Kurt Angle and how he was a heel and he was trying, like when he came to Pittsburgh, he's like, oh, this town is garbage. Like
Yeah.
you're just trying to say stuff to rile people up because that's your persona. And that's exactly why he goes after the beloved figures, the Rooneys or, Juju or Bettis or all the guys he said he targets, unless it's the Penguins, because he actually he's actually a Penguins fan.
Yeah.
So he won't
yeah.
he won't go after Mario or Sid because he actually likes he's a fan, but he's not a fan of any of the other teams, and so he'll just go after who's ever beloved the most. I mean, I remember listening one day and he went on a rant about those memorials on the side of the road. Like if somebody crashed and died, there would be like a memorial set up on the side of the road, and he's like, I don't want to see that on my drive home. I mean, it's just like you could get offended by that stuff, or you could just look at it and say, okay, I get it. He's trying to get a reaction, so why get upset about it, right? He's actually very, very knowledgeable too. He's not just a shock jock.
I think that's what happens is like he kind of mixes in like his sports knowledge and like especially on hockey, like except for when it covers the Pen sometimes with the playoff, like he always seems overly optimistic with the Penguins. But sometimes he's realistic too. Like the last couple of years, he said, "Oh, I think the window's closed for them." So I'll give him that. I'll give him that credit. Like he's not like you said. He definitely is a Pens fan, and I think sometimes that he looks a little bit too optimistic with them. But he is realistic too. So and he just I don't know why he doesn't like the Steelers. I don't. I think sometimes it comes across more than just a bit to me. Like sometimes I can tell okay, this is just a bit. And then there's other times like I don't know if he's still legitimately mad that like they got him kicked off that one show. I mean, it was just one of those stupid Sunday roundtable shows. I mean, I don't even know if you get paid for that or, it's just more just to get yourself publicity than anything. So but that's Mark Madden. He's definitely one of the bigger sports personalities in Pittsburgh sports history. So I figure we start off with a kind of shock jock. This guy I would say is old school, but this is like respectable old school. And that would be Ed Bouchette. And he wrote for the Post Gazette from 1985 to 2019. And Tim, he exclusively covered the Steelers, right? I don't remember him covering like any other sports. Do you?
No, he was the Steelers beat guy, and he was always the guy that you went to for just any sort of Steelers knowledge. No, whatever you wanted to know about, and whatever you wanted to believe is truth. Well, did Ed Bichette report it? I mean, he was the guy for Steelers news.
And it's a shame now he's with the Athletic, and once again, I guess I'm too cheap to do this. Like you have to pay $1 to read him because I, like you said, like if you really want to know what's going on with the Steelers, and not just be like a bunch of like made up BS, like somebody that actually is in the know. It's Ed Bouchette. He still has. I looked it up when I looked him up because I was wondering if because the NFL Hall of Fame, how they induct people is every team with every NFL city, they pick one writer, and that writer gets the Hall of Fame vote. And then I think there's a couple at large, like people like Peter King, and I think there might be a couple. I think he used to be, I think Dan Lebitard used to vote for the Miami. I don't know who does. I didn't see who does the Miami anymore, but he still does the Pittsburgh. He still has the vote for the NFL Hall of Fame for Pittsburgh, even though he works for the Athletic now.
Mm.
So, but like you said, he's very well respected. Like I already mentioned Peter King, but I think I would kind of compare him to Pittsburgh's version, a local version of Peter King, like a very knowledgeable. I don't always agree with everything Peter King's opinions, but when it comes to like sourced information, like you'll never get a bunch of BS from like Peter King or Ed Bouchette. Like, you know what I mean? If they're reporting it, it's definitely gonna happen or has happened.
That's a
So
good way to look at it.
yeah. Moving on to baseball. A guy who's just like a general, all-around likable, nice guy, and it's a pretty fun guy to listen to. It's Bob Walk. His bio: he had a 13-year career as a Major League Baseball pitcher, and he was with the Pirates from '84 to '93. He famously, I had to put this in here just because it's funny, and every time it comes up, he does kind of get ribbed about it. He gave up 10 runs against the Phillies in 1989, that first inning, that one time. He was warming up in the bullpen during that infamous ninth inning in Atlanta in 1992, which that's all we'll talk about that.
Uh,
In game 5 of that same NLCS, he pitched a complete game, 3-hitter to stave off elimination. So actually the reason they were in that game 7 was because of Bob Walk. After he retired, I guess that was in 93, he became announcer for the Pirates. And why he's a legend, he's like a really likable, funny color guy. And he's knowledgeable. He knows baseball, but he's like just got like a lot of personality, and he's just always says something interesting or funny. One of the funnier things that happened was he fell out of his chair during a Pirate game. Do you remember that?
no.
Oh yeah, so like we have the link to the video, but you have to watch that. Yeah, so it happened, and like I remember later that season, the Pirates actually had a bobblehead night, and they have there's a bobblehead out there of Bob Walk falling off his chair. It's absolutely hilarious because I knew a guy who had that bobblehead. He went that night and had it, so it was Bob Walk's just kind of generally a good sport and fun guy to listen to if you have to really watch the Pirates. I mean, I guess if you got 3 hours to kill and nothing to do and really want to watch some bad baseball, so
Yeah, did Bob Walk fall out of his chair because he fell asleep watching the Pirates? Because I've
well,
probably done that before.
well, I think that was back kind of in the couple years when they had McCutchen and Walker, so the Pirates were actually good. So when that happened,
So maybe he was just in shock after all the years of losing.
yeah, I was like, I've seen so much bad baseball. Hey, look, they're good. Whoa. He was kind of leaning back in the booth. If you watch the video, it's funny. He's leaning back in the booth, and the chair slides out like from behind the wall and stuff. It's hilarious. So, staying in, I guess this would be more the new school category. A guy we've talked a lot about before, Tim Benz. Tim Benz was born in Boston, but we won't hold that against him. He graduated from Syracuse, and he hosted a morning show on 105.9 The X until 2014. He hosts the Steelers post game. If I think he still does, because I know I think one of the preseason games I tuned in, I thought I heard him still talking on there. And currently he writes a column for the Tribune Review. And this is how I think Tim Benz is officially a Pittsburgher now because he moved back to Boston and got a pretty good job at like whatever their WEEI. I think that's like the big radio station in Boston. And he actually moved back to Pittsburgh. So he's officially a Pittsburgher, Tim. That makes him officially a Pittsburgher, right?
Yeah, you leave Pittsburgh and then come back.
Come back. You just can't.
A rite of passage.
Yeah, yeah. Even though he's really Syracuse from graduate Syracuse, which just makes it all the more fun because he's so smarmy about it, and just as a Pitt fan, like it's annoying, but it's a fun kind of a like he'll get me annoyed, but it's a fun kind of annoyed because he's just and Syracuse is such garbage anymore. There hasn't been that much to really cheer about with them, but what he was really known for, he quit his morning show one time over a Second Amendment debate. Do you remember that? He like got all like fired up about something. Like some gun store was giving away a gun, and he's just like, "Oh, that's a horrible idea," and he got into it with all these people on the internet and stuff.
Oh,
Was
wow. Yeah, I don't, did he come back? I don't remember
no,
him.
no, he quit. He literally quit the morning show over that. I remember
Oh,
that.
wow.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, he loves to harass Pitt fans, and then anytime like he gives like like what would I say an opinion on Pitt basketball or football, like you're just just shut up, you Syracuse orange person, go back to Syracuse, yeah. But no, it's all in good fun, and I always like Tim Benz. I thought he had pretty good opinions and pretty fun guy to listen to. So
Yeah, and that's surprising about the Second Amendment debate because he's always typically been a middle of the road political guy. He's written some really great articles for the Trib, uh, usually sports related, but where he's just pointed out the ridiculousness from both sides of the aisle, and whether it's the national anthem debate or whatever. Um, he wrote a really good article earlier this year during the Olympics where he pointed out that the what happened in 1980 with the miracle hockey team, there would be so much you know um, something today that would ruin that because cancel culture and other stuff. I've just always appreciated his kind of take on things because it's a lot less one side of the aisle kind of passion, and it's a lot more just practical. You don't always have to agree with them, but I've always said it's just funny to hear that was something that he actually left that job over.
yeah, I think he became like the sports director for all of Clear Channel then for a while. And his wife does something in the media for the I think she worked for the Trib, and I don't know if she got a job in Boston and he just moved with her as part of the deal, and then she came back to Pittsburgh, but they definitely did like the Pittsburgh thing. Like how many people from Pittsburgh have done that too? Like that's why I said like move to another city for like a year or two, and then it's like, oh, I'm back. It's just like there was like a couple years ago. I swear there was this rash of people that left Pittsburgh that all of a sudden came back to Pittsburgh. It's like it's weird. So
Yeah, his wife, at least at one point, wrote for the Trib, and then Jolie Benz, who is, I want to say, his cousin.
that sounds right. Yeah.
She's an actress who's been in some stuff. So yeah, that he's definitely has some relatives that are also in the media.
The stinking media. um, Sticking with maybe old school guy, Stan Savran. So Stan, we love the show. He was born in Cleveland. Once again, we won't hold that against him. He graduated from Miami University, just like one Ben Roethlisberger. But I don't think Stan played any quarterback there. So he hosted Sports Beat from 1991 to 2009. He's hosted a number of radio shows. I remember him doing Penn's pregame and postgame. He's a member of the Western PA Sports Hall of Fame. He's a member of the it says Pirates Media Wall of Fame. And why he's famous, he's nicknamed the Godfather of Pittsburgh sports. He's kind of like one of those even-handed, like kind of guys. He's really knowledgeable of sports. He's pretty popular. He one time had a feud briefly. Normally, him and Madden get along pretty well. Like they go on each other's show and stuff. But he had a little blow up with Madden. I think it was about the Steelers Hall of Honor. Like Madden was like, "Oh, why you even had this? It's stupid." And he was like, "Geez, just because you're not involved, you don't gotta like crap all over it." It was like really. So Stan's been around a really long time. He's been around for 45 years, and he still does a radio show. I've actually listened to it just in the last couple of weeks. And it's the same kind of show. It's got like definitely an older feel to it. It's the Hey Stan, what do you think of Tristan Jari? Are the Penguins going to keep him? I'll hang up and listen. Yeah, but
Yeah, there's still a market for that, and yeah, I mean, you're right. He's been around, as long as you and I have been alive. He's been a Pittsburgh sports media figure. So he's just been around forever. And I used to listen to his show a lot when he was on in the afternoon, um, and always enjoyed listening to him. He's, like you said, knowledgeable, easy to listen to. Has opinions, but doesn't, kind of conveys them in a different way than a guy like Benz or Madden might. And I listen to those guys too. So it's a nice kind of balance.
too bad they can't put them all in the same station. Now that would be awesome. But now I guess sticking with Stan, since we got to say Guy Junker, since Stan and Guy love the show. Guy grew up in Baldwin. He graduated from Penn State. Maybe we should hold that against him. I don't know. He works in the Channel 4 sports department since 1984. He's done pregame, halftime, and postgame for the Steelers. He's been around a long time too. He hosted Sports Beat with Stan like for a long time. It was Stan and Guy loved the show. He's okay. I always think of him more of a reporter than ever really a talk show host. I don't know. Maybe I was too young for the whole Sports Beat thing, but I mean, he's another kind of old school, I'll hang up and listen kind of guy going on there. And going into more play-by-play, a gentleman named Lanny Fratteri. Do you remember Lanny?
Of course.
Yeah. He was Ithaca College grad, and he started calling the Pirates play-by-play in 1979 until his retirement in 2008. His 33 years of play-by-play for the Pirates is the longest in team history. No doubt about it. I remember that. That was like, no doubt about it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and go ball, get out of here. Overly describing foul balls. I remember that. And it went into the third row on the third base side. And he called the game for ESPN where Bob Knight threw a chair across the court. And
Oh, wow.
I do have some audio here, Tim, of Lanny.
The Pirates have scored 3 here in the bottom of the ninth. The Bucks have the tying run at first base. And a one-ball pitch. Giles swings, drive to right field. Buccos win by way of a grand slam. Brian Giles, a line drive, grand slam into the right field seats. Count them. 6, 7, 8. Giles makes 9. Bucks win 9-8. There was no doubt about it.
Okay, as you can hear, that's Lanny doing his thing. And there definitely was that's a pretty good no doubt about it there, huh?
Yeah, that was always, it was just like comforting to hear his voice. And that was back in the day where you would actually listen to baseball on the radio because you'd be, I don't know, doing something else, right? You couldn't bring the TV with you like you could now with streaming services and stuff. And just hearing his voice, and it wasn't just on the radio, he'd be on TV too. So just to really have a lot of good memories of the Pirates when I was younger, and his voice went along with most of those.
Yeah, I always liked Lanny. Lanny was legendary in 1979. So I guess he called the last Pirates World Series. So
that'll be an answer to a trivia question 50 years from now. Still.
Staying with Pirates play-by-play guys, one Greg Brown. I think he's a media legend by this point. I'm thinking. For 3 years, he was the color analyst for the Buffalo Bills. If you listen to the NFL Films highlights of the big comeback game against Houston, you definitely hear Greg Brown like chiming in at key parts. So it's pretty cool. So in '94, he decided he had enough of winning football, which is probably good because the Bills stunk for a long time until about a couple years ago. He decided to go watch the Pirates stink for 20 years. He replaced Lanny Fratteri as the main play-by-play guy in 2009. His catchphrases are "Raise the Jolly Roger" and "Cannonball coming through," and he had a good one, "Marte Parte." Here I have a little clip of him doing a home run call. I think this is the Cueto game.
He could not possibly have stayed in that rundown long enough. The bench can't believe it. Now Cueto from the crowd. Whoa. Cueto drops the...
They rattled him.
Yeah. He dropped the ball as he was ready to go into the windup. Here's the 2-1. And there's a fly ball to left center field. That ball's deep toward the wall. And it is gone! Russell Martin clears the deck against Johnny Cueto. It is 2-0.
Yeah, that's more from Greg Brown, and boy, that one gives me chills still. And like man, you don't get tired of listening to that, huh, Tim?
No, never.
Yeah, poor Johnny Cueto has to live that. And like you can really, and we even got bonus Bob Walk in that clip too. So there you go. But there's some great calls from Greg Brown. Greg Brown, he's had to watch a lot of bad baseball, so I guess that's good for him. At least he got to be for the Cueto game. So
yeah, it's rare that you find a baseball announcer with as much enthusiasm as Greg Brown. So kudos to him, especially like you said, given the team he's assigned to.
Sticking with I guess this is play-by-play, guys. Yes, he is. Mike Lange, the legend. He just retired recently. Mike Lange joined the Penguins in 1974. He actually worked for a team called the San Diego Gulls, which I guess was another hockey team. He left the Penguins in 1975 because they were bankrupt. Can you believe it? The Penguins bankrupt. Who'd have thought of it? Who'd have thought it? Yeah. In that year, I guess he called some soccer games in Washington, D.C. And then in 1976, he came back to the Penguins, and he stayed with them until just 2021. And he was the Pens' main TV announcer from 76 until 2006. And he actually did radio calls till 2021 when he retired. I don't know if anybody remembers this. He called some Pirate games in the 1980s. I don't know if anybody remembers that. And why was he a legend? Well, he was in the movie Sudden Death, so that immediately elevates you to legendary status. So I think he curses in Sudden Death, doesn't it? Or is that Staggerwald?
I think that's Staggy that curses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know if he said like when the terrorists came in, scratch my back with a hacksaw or something. I don't know. But when Jean-Claude Van Damme kicked somebody, maybe they should have had like a Mike Langeism. But that's kind of leads us into what he really is famous for, is his goal sayings or game sayings. So he has a collection of them. These are just a few. They aren't all of them. There is a link in Wikipedia that has a list of them. It's a hockey night in Pittsburgh. It's a hockey night in Pittsburgh, and Elvis has left the building. And more recently, slap me silly, Sydney. And he's smiling like a butcher's dog and beat him like a rented mule. So he has some great calls. And I think the main one we'll share him is the 1992 Stanley Cup call, because that's probably his best one.
The Stanley Cup. Oh, Lord Stanley, get me the brandy.
So there's Mike Lange doing his Mike Lange thing. Definitely the king of the catchphrases. Definitely probably one of the more legendary play-by-plays in Pittsburgh sports history. Your favorite Mike Langeism, Tim? Do you have one?
Yeah, I like beat him like a rented mule, because it's just, I don't know, it just always makes me laugh, and it's always at the expense of some poor goaltender, that just got. I remember in the 2009 conference finals, they had this really good goaltender named Cam Ward, and there was a game where Malkin just destroyed him with a hat trick, and it was just, he beat Ward like a rented mule, and it just was, I don't know, those ones always just made me smile for whatever reason. So, but I honestly, my I take that back. That's probably my second. My favorite is honestly just the he shoots and scores, because it's just so classic. It's just such a classic call from, I mean, you have that call for guys that have been playing for the Penguins for the last 2 years. You have that call for guys that were playing for the Penguins in the 70s. It's just amazing how long he was with the Penguins, and it's going to be so odd just to try to associate anything with the Penguins without Mike Lang.
Yeah, he's definitely. I mean, he's got to be one of the top announcers in sports of all time. I would put him up there with Vin Scully and who else? Jack Buck. I don't know. I don't remember much about Jack Buck. Who was the one who said, "And we'll see you tomorrow night"? Was that Vin Scully in the '89 World Series?
That was
After-
91. That was Jack Buck, and Jack Buck
That
spent a
was
lot of
Jack
years.
Buck. Yeah.
He spent a lot of years as the St. Louis Cardinals announcer, Harry Carey in Chicago. Like, you had a lot of those guys in baseball, Ernie Harwell in Detroit, but in hockey you had some of those guys too. Like, but definitely Mike Brown, like you said, or Mike Brown, definitely Mike Lang
Mike
sticks
Brown.
out.
Yeah, he's too busy running the Bengals into the ground.
That's the next episode. But definitely Mike Lang is one of those guys that has been there forever, and who it's really hard to associate a team like the Penguins without his voice.
And I just like I trying to think of like Gus Johnson or it's hard to think of anybody that's like comparable to him. So I mean, Gus Johnson just doesn't have like any sayings or like there's the guy who does the Boston Bruin games, and his more thing is like he's just so homer, like, you know what I mean? Like if somebody hits like a Boston player, it's like the greatest tragedy ever. It's like, oh my gosh, Pasternak got checked. Oh, what a horrible person you are, So, but yeah, Mike Lang's definitely a fun one, and definitely I'd be surprised if he isn't in some sort of Hall of Fame somewhere if he isn't already.
He's in the Hockey Hall of Fame actually already, so and well deserved.
Yeah. Sticking with absolute legends, that would be one Bino Cook. His bio, he graduated from Pitt in 1954, and I didn't know this. He served in the Army for 2 years. He was, yeah.
I can't see that. I just can't picture that.
Bino in the Army. That had to be a trip, huh? He was Pitt's sports publicist from 1956 to 1966. I guess in the 80s, he did some commentary for WPXI, but really where he rose to fame was he worked for ESPN from the late 1980s until his death. He was referred to as the Pope of college football. He really was a legend in college football more than anything, and probably more nationally than even Pittsburgh. Like he's big in Pittsburgh, but like on a national level, like, Bino definitely. One time he predicted Ron Paulus would win multiple Heismans. Yeah, I guess that didn't work out too well for Bino there. Another great quote by Bino was that Dracula and LSU football are at their best after sundown, which is just hilarious. And I remember one time I couldn't find this clip on the internet. I know I've seen it, but I couldn't find it anywhere on the internet. The internet really let me down on this one, but I know he did this. He bet Howard Baldwin at a press conference, like they were having like a question and answer with Howard Baldwin. He bet he would sell the Penguins and leave town within 5 years. And that's just, it's like amazing. Like the chutzpah on Bino there, but that's Bino for you. I mean, and there is a field, I think one of the practice fields at Pitt's practice complex is named after Bino Cook. So I mean, Bino, he wrote a great, like, I know I've said it before, like he wrote a great introduction to one of the Sam Shulo, he's a Pitt historian, books about Pitt. And I mean, Bino's just, he was a legend. He's like, if you wanted to learn something about college football, you just definitely listen to Bino talk.
Yeah, his knowledge on college football was always amazing. You talked about Stan Savran used to have the afternoon show every, I forget what day of the week, Wednesday or something. He would always have Bino on at 4:00, and Bino would always have a college fight song as like his introduction song. and he would switch it once a year. And for a while, it was like the Ramblin' Wreck from Georgia Tech. I think maybe the Michigan fight song was in there, and they would actually play like the song with the words and everything. It was like intro him in, and he just always had these just great nuggets. He had this amazing memory. Like he'd be sitting there like, yeah, and then the 1957 Sugar Bowl, and he would just reel off stuff that you're just like, wow, how do you remember that? So yeah, he was just a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, it's a shame. I do miss Bino, and his, if you ever do look on the he has some outtakes on YouTube still from his ESPN days, are absolutely hilarious. Just Bino, just
I can hear him. Tell him I can hear him.
yeah,
I remember those clips. Those were classics.
Yeah.
ESPN played those for years.
I just laugh thinking about it. But Bino's like definitely a Pittsburgh legend, and nationally is a legend too. So. Now going into the category of strictly, we'll go strictly Pittsburgh sports legend, but definitely old school Pittsburgh sports legend. And that's the one, the only Myron Cope. And, his bio, he graduated from Pitt and he worked for the Post Gazette. He also wrote for Sports Illustrated. He has a ton of awards. He runs some prize for best magazine in sports writing. He's named as a Notary Literary Achiever by the Hearst Corporation. His profile of Howard Cosell was selected as one of the 50 all-time classic articles by Sports Illustrated. He's the first pro football announcer elected to the Radio Hall of Fame. He received something called the Pete Rozelle Radio Television Award. He just has so many different awards. And that's just his awards. His legendary status is he invented the terrible towel in 1975 before a playoff game, and of course, all the proceeds went to benefit the Allegheny Valley schools, which I think now they changed their name to Marykete, and that's it's a program that helps people with intellectual disability. So if you buy a terrible towel, you're helping a good cause out. He had many catchphrases. I remember "Oko and and it's just like that's my best Myron Cope. Sorry, is not that great. He popularized the term "immaculate reception." He gave Cordell Stewart the Slash nickname. Did Jerome Bettis, was he already the bus when he came here, or was that a Myron Cope thing?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I
remember the Cordell Stewart thing because I remember it distinctly. It was the Monday night football game against the Browns in 1995, and I was at that game and I listened to Myron on the way home. He always went down to the locker room to do like locker room interviews.
And he actually Cabana. Was that Cope's Cabana?
It was Cope's Cabana.
Because he sang the Copacabana song by Barry Manilow for it.
Yeah. And he was sitting there like he was like, oh, I guess Cordell Stewart, quarterback / running back / well, let's just call him Slash. Like I heard him actually come up with that on the spot. And then, 2-3 weeks later, you hear everybody, national guys, everybody just call it Cordell Stewart Slash. So the stuff he invented, like he had this knack of just coming up with stuff that's stuck. I mean, he would have been a great like marketing person, like commercials or slogans for companies, because whatever he came up with, it just always stuck for years.
Yeah, he was such a character, and I remember my mom, like at first, like she was like, "Oh, his voice is so annoying, and who is this guy?" But like then you would listen to him, and he would just grow on you. It was like, what was that Seinfeld bit? Costanza, like by Menon. It's just like it gets stuck in your head, just like you said. Like I remember he had one called Jerome Bettis. He ain't no head of lettuce. I think that he says that in his Macarena song, and I do have a link. I remember Yoy to the World. I remember that was like on the sides of buses. He had a radio show on 1250, and I remember when Johnny Majors came back the second time, he did like a recap of Johnny Majors like first year or 1 year at Pitt, and like he did like a recap of all the games, and it was like he was like, and Majors and the Marauders from Pitt went down to Southern Miss, and it was like it was wild. Like it was just like so entertaining, like you said, and memorable. Like they don't do stuff like that anymore on sports radio, which is a shame, because it was actually fun. Now it's like, oh, let's all yell each other about, like you said, people kneeling or something stupid. Sports is fun.
Right.
So I'm gonna play. This is from 1984, and this is called "Deck the Broncos," and this is classic Myron. This is unbelievable. I found this, and I have to share this, so we will share it.
Maestro, if you please. Those Broncos, they're just yonkos. There's John Elway traversing like a railway. Trample Elway like he's the Parkway. Hit that rich kid with a manhole lid. He faced the Steelers in his debut. We can still see that in his pants. At Three Rivers, they made him chop livers. He met the Steelers and knows they're killers. David Little is coming up the middle. Crack that rich kid, knock out his right kiss him. No, don't kiss him. Safety, blitz him. That Bronco is just a yonko. Yoy. Merry Christmas from Myron Cope on sports.
The funny thing about that is if you played that for some fan or some, somebody in some other city that never heard of Pittsburgh, they'd be like, why did somebody record their drunk uncle trying to sing a Christmas song?
I'm sorry, I laughed in the middle of that whole when he said
David Little coming up the middle. Yeah. I just and like it's great. Like we ate that up, in Pittsburgh, and we even watching that clip today. We love it. I'd love to show that to somebody else, and they'd just be like, "What in the world? What was that?" And we're like, "It's Myron. He's the best. It's Myron." Like, just imagine trying to show that to somebody and convince them that that's not a crazy person.
I don't why did he kept calling Elway a rich kid? Is that because he held out in that draft and wouldn't go to the poll?
I don't know.
He kept saying the rich kid's bicuspid. Hit him with a manhole lid. That's horrible. That's hilarious.
That would get him canceled today, I think.
Oh, I know. Like, I'm so insulted. Maybe not. I don't know. You said rich kid, so maybe that would not get him canceled. He has a can't touch this video, and but it's just not that good. I not even gonna. And the Macarena is just it's with a longer video. I mean, if you want me to play it, and you can decide if you want to enter it or not.
Yeah, we'll just put a link.
Okay, yeah, because it's longer and it's in the middle of like a preview for like a Monday night game against the Dolphins, I guess, in the 90s. So I think it was 95, actually. No, it was 96 because it was Tom Zach. Tom Zach's the quarterback. So
yeah, he did a Achy Breaky Heart was another one.
It's just not. That's the best one, I thought, because did they win that playoff game?
No, I think that was for the Buffalo game that they lost in '92. I think. Don't quote me on that, but
no, because he says Elway. No, the deck the.
Oh, the deck the halls. I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about. Yes, that was the game that they upset Denver in Denver. We talked about that in our Steelers Broncos episode, where Eric Williams, who nobody would ever remember, picked off Elway in the final minute to win the game for the Steelers. So yeah, they actually did win that game.
Yeah, I guess they did knock out a bicuspid. It was David Little the running back or the linebacker?
Linebacker, yeah.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Did he come up the middle in that game at all?
We'll have to check the tape on that
one. Which leads to our last entry, and I saved this because this is one of my favorites.
Hang on, Steve. I just one more anecdote to add.
Oh, okay. Myron.
Right. Yeah, I have to add this. But when my mom called into his radio show once, years and years ago, maybe in the 70s, and she told us that story for years when we were kids because she was like so proud. She called into Myron's show, and she talked to him, and he said something like, "Oh, you're very knowledgeable, young lady," or something like that. And she told that story for years. She was like so proud of that. So I just always thought that was cool.
Remember Chris Collinsworth said something, the women in Pittsburgh really know their football.
Oh,
like like how much trouble we got in that it's like they really do. They really, I mean, it's a fair observation. I don't know why people get so fired up about it. At least around here they do. I don't know. But anyway, moving on, Tunch Ilkin and Craig Wolfley. I kind of put them together because they like do a lot of buddy show. Like they do this great locker room talk show they always like to listen to, and they were just they were both former players with the Steelers in 1980. Neither were in a Super Bowl, but both were pretty good. I think Tunch made a couple Pro Bowls. Why they're a median legend, mainly Tunch, just because Tunch has kind of had to retire and step back. But Tunch hosted a show, Lunch with Tunch, and he would interview all the Steelers and football guys. It was pretty awesome. He also hosted the show with his friend Craig, where they called The Locker Room. It was just a great football talk radio show. Just great football talk. Ilkin became a color analyst for the Steelers in 1998. He was really good at breaking down plays, especially with the offensive line. His Chuck Noll stories were interesting because it was like, I didn't know much about Chuck Noll, and like it would always illustrate how like Chuck Noll, the effect he had on him and Craig Wolfley's just life in general, and how really good of a person Chuck Noll was outside of just being a good coach. So that was interesting. And of course, the best Tunch moment of all time is during the Nick Harper fumble return, and I do have that, and I guess we can listen to that, huh? Got your money.
For all you fantasy football players out there that have Jerome, you've got to be very excited right now.
Wouldn't it be nice for him to get his second touchdown of the game? Here's the give to Jerome. He has it.
Oh,
the ball is fumbled.
And
the Colts pick it up. Look out.
Oh, my gosh.
Nick Harper has it. He's running. And Big Ben can't. He tackles him. He tackles him at the 43-yard line. Jerome Bettis, who rarely fumbles at the goal line. Nick Harper picks it up, and the Colts are still alive with 1:09 to go.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. All you got to do is fall on the ball. What a turn of events. Okay, now you got 1:09 left, right? The Colts got the ball at the 42-yard line. The game is not over. Cancel the reservations to Denver. We got to finish this one out here. Unbelievable.
So that's Tunch at his probably at a moment he'd rather forget, but Tunch was great. He's just great, and I miss him. I miss him on the radio broadcast already. And I hope I don't know who they brought in. Did they bring in Charlie Batch? I don't know who they brought in to replace him.
Craig Wolfley.
Oh, was Wolfley? Well, Wolfley's pretty good too. I liked him more on the sidelines, but I'm sure he'll be fine in the booth. But yeah, unfortunately, Tunch had got ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and he's been battling that, and so. In the last year, he was pretty sick. You could tell even on the air. But that was definitely prime Tunch there. And I just love to cancel the reservations to Denver. We got 1:09 to play. And then at the end of the game, the best part is he goes, remake those reservations to Denver. We're going to the championship game. So, but that's Tunch. It was great. And he was always great to hear. And a very good person, too. Like, when he got sick, just the outpouring of people that said, oh, what a fine person he is and stuff was just amazing.
Yeah, full disclosure, I know Tunch personally. He's the men's director at my church and has been for a number of years. And, you know, what you said there, Steve, definitely just a great person, just somebody that inspires you, somebody that's a leader, somebody that you want to model yourself after. So, you know, always praying for him and hoping that this illness doesn't ravage him too much, because it's not a good one. So you're right. He's definitely missed on the air for sure.
Yeah, we'll love Tunch, and just like everybody else, just like Myron, you missed Myron kind of there at the end, and yeah, and I'm sure Hillgrove will have to retire one of these days, but you know, you get used to these people, especially I think the play-by-play and the color guys like the Myrons and the Tunches and, you know, Lanny Fatteris and, yeah, I'm sure Greg Brown, you know, but you know, life goes on, and there'll be new people, I'm sure, to fill in and stuff. But it's always fun to look at these guys and reminisce. Well, thank you much for tuning in. We're still at what Steelers Memories Weebly.com, something like that. Yeah, that's pretty close to our website. Thanks for tuning in. Give us a rating if you could. That helps other people find us. And we're still on Twitter, and I do believe other social media outlets. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, everybody.